Well, you've seen Chuck and I bolt on blowers, headers, manifolds, you name it, all in the name of making more power. In fact, anything that gives you a few more horses is worth considering, so consider for a minute lubrication. Now, on the average, you make 20 to 40 more horsepower on an engine dyno than on a chassis dyno like ours in the horsepower shop, and the reason is parasitic power losses or friction in everything from the pistons, rods, and lifters here in the engine to the gear-to-gear friction you make in your transmission and differential. So it stands to reason, reduce the friction and you'll increase the horsepower from the flywheel to the ground where it counts. Of course, that's what synthetics are all about for engine, transmission, and rear ends. Now, these come from Royal Purple, and they're used increasingly in a lot of race cars. So what if you could add a few more horsepower to your street machine just by changing the lubricants? Well, that's a challenge they made to us, and one we're going to accept. Well, here's what we're using for our little test. A basically stock 2000 Camaro that we borrowed. Has an LS1 engine and of course a 6-speed tranny. Now we'll drain the engine oil, transmission fluid, and gear oil, replace it with the Royal Purple stuff, and see what happens. Oh, first order business though, get a baseline on our dyno jet. Okay, there's the number we got to beat, 302.4 horsepower. Good baseline, so now let's get this Camaro off the dyno jet and on the lift. We'll get started out back by draining the differential oil. Then with a 3/8 drive, remove this plug in the back of the transmission to drain it. And finally, the oil pan plug and the old filter. Okay, with our cover back in place and all snugged down, we can start pouring in this max gear oil. It's got a friction modifier for limited slip and locking differentials. Plus, it has a high film strength, it's non-corrosive, and satisfies GL4 and GL5 specifications. Okay, the transmission's next, and here we got a little clearance problem with the Camaro. There's no way to directly pour fluid into that fill hose, so we're going to put this baby to work. What it is a 5-liter drum and pump we got from Trico Manufacturing, and it's going to make this job a whole lot easier. Now, inside I've got Synchromax fluid, which is made for high-performance transmissions that require Mercon or Dexron ATF. Okay, for engine oil, we're going with this 5W30. The motor is where you see the most parasitic power losses, so Royal Purple's put a lot of work into their synthetic base oil and additive technology. The whole idea is to cut down on the friction and, again, free up the horsepower. Now the icing on the cake, no pun intended. This Purple Ice engine coolant additive can actually reduce engine temperatures by up to 10%. That frees up horsepower by reducing detonation. Now you can use it straight with water for racing or with your favorite coolant water combination for the street. I don't know about you, but I'm about ready for another dyno run. As they say, the dyno don't lie, 310.8, that's more than an 8 horsepower gain. Not bad for a few hours work and, well, less than $100.
You all remember the test we did on Scott Krause's 65 Mercury Comet, where with case in point, this 62 Galaxy with 4,000 pounds to lug around, this baby used to deliver about 14.5 miles per gallon around town, and at the best about 17 or so on the open road. But after we put Royal Purple Racing 21 synthetic lubricant in the engine and rear axle, those numbers jumped to 17.9 around town, and on Power Tour, it got 21.9 miles per gallon. Now, synthetic oils might cost a little bit more initially, but the savings in fuel and the reduced wear will pay off in the long run. On Power Tour, we put 5,900 miles on this car, and Royal Purple worked for us.
By now, you have heard about some of the unique benefits of Royal Purple motor oil. One of the primary features of the oil is its high film strength. Some of the important benefits of Royal Purple motor oil, such as improved fuel economy, lower emissions, and reduced maintenance, can be attributed to this one unique feature of Royal Purple. This machine is called a Phalanx lubricity tester. Despite its imposing name, it's actually a very simple device we can use to compare the load-carrying capability of a film of oil. Within any combustion engine, there are numerous parts that must be protected by a thin film of motor oil. The motor oil must also reduce friction and provide good sealing. And the stronger and more tenacious the oil film, the more efficiently the engine can transmit power to the wheels. On this rotating shaft is a Timken race, a metal device that simulates the high-speed moving parts of an engine. The race is lubricated by an oil cup, which provides the oil film. Opposing this race is a Timken test bearing. When load is applied to the bearing, it will attempt to rub against the race if the oil film does not have enough film strength to prevent it. We can increase load in our test by adding 2-pound weights to the lever bar supporting the bearing. After fully loading the bearing, we'll remove it to measure the oil film strength by observing the size and condition of the wear scar on the bearing. These gauges allow us to monitor bearing temperature and motor amps. During the test, we'll be able to measure the demand on our energy as we increase the load. We'll begin our test with one of the more well-known high-quality synthetic oils. Lubricating the bearing and the race with just an oil film simulates real-life engine conditions. First, we'll check to make sure we have adequate lube to our race and our bearing, which we do. The only thing separating the bearing and the race is the film of oil. Next, we'll add weight to increase the load. Notice that as we start adding load, the demand on the energy is increased. The demand increases from approximately 5 amps unloaded to over 8 amps with 3 weights. We'll remove the bearing to see how it was affected under that type of load. Notice that the bearing shows a very large wear area that is also very rough. Now we'll run the same test again with a new bearing. Notice that the amperage increases again as it did before. This time, though, we'll add Royal Purple 5W30 motor oil to the existing motor oil. This is our fully formulated motor oil. Instantly, the previously high amp reading of over 8 has been reduced to about 5.2. This demonstrates how Royal Purple's high film strength can return some of the efficiency lost to wear, even after an engine has been operating with another oil. We can now go back to a full load with very little change in our power requirement. When we examine the bearing, we find the wear that occurred with the other motor oil is still there, but the surface of this bearing is now much smoother. Switching to Royal Purple can actually help undo some of the wear that may already be present in an engine. Now we'll put Royal Purple to the same test. This time we'll start with Royal Purple 5W30 motor oil, our fully formulated motor oil. We'll use a new test bearing to compare how Royal Purple performs under the same conditions. Now we'll turn on the motor and add the load. Notice that with a full load of 4 weights, the energy draw is about the same without the load. Another unique feature of Royal Purple oil is that it leaves a very tenacious oil film behind on all parts once they are lubricated. To demonstrate this, we'll simulate a cold start on an engine by removing the oil supply. With no oil supply, we can actually start this motor fully loaded and almost immediately return to our starting amps. When the bearing is removed, it shows a dramatic difference in the wear area without the scarring that was observed with the other oil. While film strength is not the only advantage to Royal Purple, film strength is the linchpin of the unique chemistry we call Cinerlec. Without this film strength, owners wouldn't see the improvement in fuel economy, the improvement in emissions, or the longer engine component life of the vehicle. It's a difference that you can see and experience in your own vehicle. Royal Purple is the most advanced lubrication technology available for your gasoline or diesel engine.
Come on, Ryan. Let's go shopping.
Can we have ice cream, Mommy?
Can we have dinner first?
Yes. Oh. Royal Purple high-performance synthetic motor oil outlasts conventional oil, so you spend less time changing it.
I need an oil change. Can you use Royal Purple?
Yeah, the high performance oil.
Right.
For fewer oil changes, better mileage, reduced emissions, and longer engine life, Royal Purple, the performance oil that outperforms.
I want ice cream.